This is why we produce. This would be a problem on the QCast.
Hello and welcome to the D3 Datacast. I am Matt Snyder, and joining me on the other line is my co-host, Zach Snyder. How you doing, Zach?
Hi, Matt. Really excited for this episode.
I'm really excited too because we have a great friend of the show on today. I'm hoping everyone else becomes aware of what we are very much aware of, and that is how much of a great job D3Direct does at supporting the D3 level. So with that, we'd like to welcome in Karl Barkley of D3Direct. How are you doing, Karl?
Guys, doing well. Great to be here. Good to see you. Not at the GLI or at the Final Four. It's a treat.
Yes, we just need to have you not let your real life get in the way of future Fort Wayne trips so that we can hang out,
Yeah.
there. I mean, that's been a problem the last couple years, but we'll let you off the hook for that. Um, And Karl, we got to welcome you back to the show. You were part of our way too early conference champion draft last offseason. We're looking forward to doing that again. Our friend Ryan Whitnable walked away with the monstrous trophy, so all three of us will be aiming for him. So welcome back to the show.
Yeah. I'm excited for the draft again. Probably going to try to do a little more research than I did this year, and hopefully I can turn my I don't know if it was a second or third place into a win. I feel like I beat Bob Quillman, and that's
That's what's important. That's what's
Well,
important.
I mean,
That is,
yeah, I mean, let's all clear that low bar if we could.
yeah.
Okay, so Karl, you are the generally nameless, faceless entity behind D3 Direct, and I know you like to keep it that way. The D3 Direct brand is very front and center ahead of the Karl Barkley brand, which I think could be equally strong. But it is, I think, important for people to understand that there is a great D3 person behind the D3 Direct persona. Um, so I briefly, we'll keep it brief because I know, that's not what you're always about, the self-promotion aspect. But if you would kind of take us through maybe your exposure to the Division III level before you arrived at the Division III level, and then kind of just your brief D3 story.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there was definitely a period where I wasn't aware of D3, and I grew up in North Carolina and played playing basketball there. Everything is, the blue bloods, Carolina, Duke, and I grew up down the street from a smaller school, but still a pretty successful basketball program in Davidson College, and was lucky enough to be a kid when Steph Curry passed through there, which was just
Hmm.
an awesome thing to experience, as a basketball player, and to get to go to his home games and watch him. And also just get to see what Davidson was about. It was this small liberal arts school that could also succeed in sports, and um, felt like a great model. I was like, okay, I like applying myself in the classroom. I like playing this game. I don't know if I'm quite at this level. I'm watching Steph play, and every night in and night out, I'm like, I'm not quite there, but that style is appealing. And it wasn't until probably my junior year of high school that I actually went to a program at Davidson just for kids in the area, and they at the end I got matched with one of their college counselors and talked to them, and they gave me a couple of names on the list, and a few of them were Division III schools all on the East Coast, and places I'd never heard about before. Because I think up to that point I was really looking at schools like Wake Forest or Carolina, just to be a student. And but yeah, ended up going to some recruiting camps, a lot of the ones that I've promoted on the site over the summer, and um, yeah, ended up just getting recruited by some of those schools that had been on the list that the college counselor suggested, and that's how it all started. Just slowly becoming aware of it, and then putting myself in the right place to get recruited by these schools, and um, yeah, ended up choosing Swarthmore. We can get into that story because it's pretty funny. But
No, I go for it. You just
yeah,
launch right into it.
okay, yeah. So was dead set on going to one school, which will remain nameless. The coach was awesome to me. Was the first one that recruited me, and just yeah, I had kind of gone to visit a couple times, and was dead set. Ended up doing visit, an overnight visit, which I recommend to all recruits. I think it's a vital, way to assess what the school is actually going to be like. The coach can be the best, the program can be amazing, but at the end of the day, get on campus, check out a class, meet the team, because stories like mine happen where I got there and my host fell asleep in his class that I went to with him. And then we went out to a party that night, and I got ditched at this off-campus party. This is pre-Uber, so we're like 15 minutes off campus driving, and I'm without a host and no way to get back to campus. So I end up like, maybe a great way to develop my social skills, but end up talking to some other students there and hitch a ride back. And but after that, I was kind of less excited about the experience and the guys. So ended up opening back up my search and looked into schools up in the Northeast like Swarthmore and a few others, and had a visit scheduled at SWAT for one night, and then a visit at a nearby school for another night, again, which will remain nameless, because 2 nights before I was supposed to go, hotels booked, my dad's going to go up with me, and the assistant coach reaches out and cancels the visit and says they already recruited my spot, and ended up changing my 1-night visit at Swarthmore to a 2-night visit, and the rest is history. Love the guys, love the school, and not very strong at basketball. Definitely the worst out of all 3 of those schools that I was looking at, but it ended up for the best. So.
Yeah, an important lesson. Visit the school in person, and then do like coach visits and stuff, but also do student visits and see what the life is like. Also, how the tides will change for a program. At that time, Swarthmore was not anything to write home about, and now I feel like they're one of like the strong. I mean, they were just in the Final Four like a year ago, right? And have been in previously like one of the top programs in Division III. So yeah, great to see how things can change for programs as well.
So congratulations on turning around the program, Karl. That was...
Yeah. As you entered, they were in the bottom, and then as you were leaving, they were building kind of like towards Final Four runs, right?
I love it.
Yeah. The best quote is one of my freshmen when I was a senior, Zach Yonda. I need to go back and get this documented in writing, but and find the article. But he was interviewed by the student newspaper, and it was like, tons of excitement around the men's basketball team to start the year. And he goes, "We didn't lose much. I was the only senior." So my coach loves to, Landry's great. He loves to give me credit for helping to turn the program around, but he also loved to throw that one at me that even my teammates thought that we didn't lose too much when I graduated.
You need to have a copy of that autographed and framed somewhere, and you can...
Exactly.
Yeah. Only departing senior Karl Barkley. Yeah, thank you.
My contribution.
All right, we could turn down the heat on you personally and back to the D3Direct brand. All right, there's so much that happens under the banner of D3Direct. What would you say as like an elevator pitch or just quick description for what D3Direct is and does?
Yeah, so I think in short, I want D3Direct to be, the go-to source for any prospective college athlete. We have a focus on the Division III level, but I like to think that the content that we put out regarding college sports recruiting and kind of admissions, financial aid, everything really is applicable to all levels. And the goal is just to make college more, I guess, less scary, more approachable for students of all financial backgrounds, so that it's not, these opportunities aren't just reserved for, people that came from families with a lot of money or with connections. Trying to lower that bar so that more people can, I think, access the incredible network, incredible athletic, incredible academic opportunities that a D3 situation possesses.
I think D3Direct is a tremendous resource. I'm just curious how you got the idea. Was this something you were thinking about while you were in school, or since you left school, developed the idea and decided to start, producing and releasing content?
Yeah, it's definitely something, I would say, not as much in school. I mean, I did like to help high school athletes informally, but it was during the start of COVID. We're probably a month in, and the as many people were. I was sitting in my apartment, and not there wasn't much we could do. And my roommate was on a call with her younger sister, and she was a junior in high school at the time, and just talking about her college options. She was a basketball player and wanted to play in school. And my roommate was like, "Well, I don't really know. I played soccer." And so I said, "Well, give me the phone. Like, maybe I can help her out." And we ended up talking for an hour. And I built her this spreadsheet and go through all these options, and end up giving her, thinking about like a list of around 10 schools. And she ends up choosing one of those at the end of the day, to go play her college basketball. And like, I walked away from that experience just thinking to myself, like, okay, wow, that was really fun. One, two, I think I'm kind of good at this. And three, like, I have so much time. What if I just, tried to make this into a thing? And I talked to my brother a lot about that, and he played college golf. And so he was like, well, what if you just for 30 days start a Twitter account, and for 30 days just put information out, like one tip. And if you make it into 30 days, then you might have something, and go from there. And yeah, I think it's been fun to see how it's developed. I think a big focus, which I'd love to get back to more regularly, at the start, was just interviewing a ton of athletes and posting, their stories, their takeaways, behind the brand. And I think, we talked about it at the start, but that's a big reason why I try to put D3Direct first instead of Karl Barkley, because I like to think that, I have a perspective, I have information and knowledge that I've gained through this process, but that's only one perspective. And there are so many others out there, that have gone through the D3 level and have advice and insights to share. So I like to pull all of those together under the umbrella, and again, bring that information to people in an accessible way.
Yeah, I love that story about getting started and just kind of having that 30-day trial, right, to see if anyone cares or anything happens. I'm wondering if you had any expectations at the beginning, or maybe halfway through that 30-day trial, or like, what were your expectations at the beginning, as you're trying to see if there's an idea here that could be executed on?
Yes. I can tell you what, no one cared. The first 30 days, no one, if I got one like on a post, or like someone commented, it was like the highlight of my day, because it definitely felt like a lot of screaming into the void. But yeah, I think in terms of expectations, I was having fun, which is what I would encourage, if anyone is thinking about working on a project or has an idea, like, especially doing something online, as I'm sure you guys have experienced with D3 Datacast, which is now, established and out there, and a recognizable brand, because people have seen you over and over again, produce great stuff. Like,
Oh, we're sorry
I
about
think
that.
when you put things online, though, there is a ramping up period. And so, yeah, again, I had my brother's perspective, which was helpful. He had done some stuff like this before. And so he was like, keep it measured in terms of expectations. And yeah, I also didn't tell anyone about it. Like, I didn't tell anyone it was me, because I wanted the content to register with people, not like, oh, this is Karl, we're going to give him a pity like, or, you know, um,
I think that's how we got started.
a lot of pity like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that every like I put on your stuff, that's a pity,
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm wondering. So it's like there's a slow ramp up here. How has the vision changed or grown, or like, you probably started with one idea, and like you've got, so many different avenues, so many different things that D3 Direct now is going. Like, what was the initial vision, going beyond that 30-day period, and how has it changed over the, the what, 4 years at this point?
yeah, it's a good question. I think at the start I was pretty hesitant to do long form content. I was like, okay, I'm dealing with high schoolers. That's my target audience. I'm trying to get some information to them. How do they process information? How do they like to consume information? And so I went for a lot of short form, video, and I feel like that stuff was good. But again, I think I started, as I've gone on, I've started to do a lot more long form. I've been doing a newsletter for a couple years now, and I think the interactions there are a lot better. Kids can, search within my newsletter for a specific term, and things are just a lot more lasting in terms of the library that's getting built that they can access during their admissions recruiting process and everything. Whereas I feel like the short form content, every TikTok wasn't around really when I got started. I think if I was putting stuff up on there, for instance, or like on Reels on Instagram, like it's up and then people forget about it, right? And I think it's a lot less searchable. Um, and so there is like a temptation to do that. It's glamorous. You see a lot of people like grow quickly through that, but I think I've tried to focus on like building slow, going with long form now. And I think the feedback and like the density of information that I can provide is actually making an impact.
So what are some of the best ways to follow the D3 Direct content right now? What platforms are you on? I see you most often through like newsletter content, through the Twitter account, but I think you have podcast stuff as well. I guess what's all out there under the D3 Direct umbrella right now?
Yeah, I'd say Twitter's still the primary source. We did just start a website, which is d3-direct.com, and still working out the bugs. Would love feedback. Like if anyone listening to this wants to check out the website and let us know what they think we should add, or an area that they think we could revamp, we're all ears. Definitely in the process of building that. And then I think, outside of that, the Substack newsletter, which you can find a link in our bio on any social site, is the place that, we're giving out information every week. The newsletter typically goes out on Wednesday mornings, and covering all different, slices of the recruiting process. We just finished up a 3-part series talking about how to handle your summer, how to approach recruiting camps, which ones to pick, which ones are the right ones for you, and maybe how to save some money in the process. So trying to keep it timely and give kids, again, like that density of information every week that they can work off of.
Yeah, and I gotta say, just following D3 Direct on the socials and stuff, there are times that I'll see something come through and I'm like, that's great advice for someone who would be, looking at maybe trying to play a sport at a D3. But also that would just be good advice for any high schooler or parent who has a high schooler that's starting like a college search process, right? Because there's so much, just the D3 level not being a scholarship level, right? There's a lot of just sort of real student topics and hurdles to climb, with financial aid and things like that. I'm wondering, is that just a natural function of, the D3 level and athletic scholarships not being a part of it? Or do you have, like you mentioned, it not necessarily being, or a resource that someone who ends up playing D2, right, could take advantage of? How much are you thinking about, oh, this is great advice just for any student, athlete or not?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there is some of that. Like, if at the end of the day, the impact of my work is that more people have access to financial aid from college, like that's a win. And I think there will be, as the website gets going, and I can work on SEO, and that will be a way to pull in more of an audience, like, and again, build a more general resource. I still think my focus is the D3 level. And as you mentioned, it's like, I think that is the balance between academics and athletics is so ingrained that it's sometimes hard to make a sport specific or a level specific resource, because the academics are such a major piece and cost is such a big issue for a lot of families, when the sticker price at university is $65,000-$70,000. Trying to help kids understand that they don't have to necessarily pay that, and not to rule out resources on their face just because they're scared of a sticker price.
Yeah. So, Karl, you mentioned you had just finished up the series on like recruiting and what students should be looking at. That's one of the focuses we want to make on this episode is, maybe there's a high school student looking in the next couple of years to make a college choice. how are they going to go through that recruiting process? How do you get recruited by a D3 or one of these other small college type programs? What they should do? What would you say? And maybe this is a summer thing or just maybe overall, but what's the number one thing a recruit should do kind of during or maybe at the start of their recruiting process?
Yeah. So first of all, I think defining that timeline is helpful for a lot of families, because I'll get messages from kids who are like, 2029. So way out in the distance. And I'm like, you're way ahead. Just relax. Kids don't really need to start their recruiting process. I mean, at the earliest during their sophomore year, no coaches are really going to be recruiting you then, unless you're a top 100 recruit in the nation. And in earnest, like the serious stuff won't start until your junior year. And the summer after your junior year is a really big one to make an impact. I think the number one thing, it's actually not sports specific. It's just getting really good grades. If you have good grades and you're an easy admit to the school, you make the coach's life so much easier, especially at a D3 school. The coaches that we talk to, most of the time, they're excited about a kid. The getting them into the school portion is what holds things up. Mm-hmm. And they only have, again, every school is going to be slightly different, but they only have a little bit of wiggle room with one, maybe two kids, depending on how big the roster size is. If you're talking football versus women's tennis, you're going to have a different allotment and different wiggle room with admissions. But if a coach doesn't have to use some of that wiggle room with you as a player, it makes their life easier. You're going to get more financial aid from the school. And then the sports, that's the easy part, right? That takes care of itself. If you're getting recruited because you're a good player. So handle all the other stuff off the court, work on your game. And I think, that's obviously an oversimplification, but at the end of the day, like, good grades make everything easier.
Yeah.
All right, so like if we start putting this into kind of like a playbook or checklist type thing, I think there's kind of different areas that would be important to touch on. So let's start maybe just highlight some things to do specifically on the field or court.
Yeah. We'll start with basketball. Like, I think, coaches love to see body language, right? They always are going to be looking at body language. So this is, the obvious thing to say is, okay, make shots, right? If you're a basketball player, be a good scorer, play good defense. But I think, like, especially for recruits going into the summer recruiting period, if you're going to camps, you're going to get looked at. You're going to be getting evaluated in live game situations, and maybe you don't have your best game, right? Like, maybe you go out there, you're 0 for 5 from the field to start the game. If you walk back to the bench and you're pouting, you have your head down, you don't give people high fives when you come off the court, your coach tries to say something to you and you ignore them, like, that'll get you unrecruited faster than anything. Because coaches don't want, just as much as they don't want to deal with someone who can't handle the schoolwork or is going to be trouble, going to be a nuisance for them off the court, they don't want someone who's going to be a nuisance for them on the court either. So I think obviously work on skill development, work on your game, but I think show up as a teammate, show up in these summer recruiting periods, show up with great energy, and make contributions that aren't recorded on the score sheet.
All right, so what about some things to do off the field or court?
Off the field or court, this summer, again, if a kid's going, let's say they're going into their summer after their junior year, so they're a rising senior, I think something that we encourage a lot of kids to do is fill out the recruiting questionnaire. So go ahead and get that done before you email the coach. That way you're reaching out to the coach and you can say, hey, coach, really excited about your school. Here's why. Give one reason. Say, I already filled out the recruiting questionnaire. I'm going to be at these events this summer. Would love to, meet you if you're going to be there. Let me know. What that does for a coach, one, it makes their life easier. And if you can do that during your recruiting process, you're going to make yourself more likely to get recruited. Two, it shows them where you're going to be and it shows them that you're prepared. and that you're actually really interested in the school. The fancy admissions term is demonstrated interest, that admissions departments always try to look at points of contact along the way that a recruit has, indicated or shown. It's easy when, you get to the end of the recruiting process and you don't have an offer to be like, wow, I really am interested in your school. But it takes a different level of work to, have gone to their website, filled out their questionnaire, emailed the coach, gone to an admission session, visited campus. All these things are recorded in your profile along the way. And again, are ways off the court that a recruit can really make an impact, and make it more likely they're going to get into a school they want.
Right, so this can vary by sport, right? Because every season is different. But things to do in season. Whether depending on the sport, if it may be fall, maybe spring, maybe winter, whatever. But for a student athlete who's in season, what are some things to do specific to that in season time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously be as dedicated as you can to your practice schedule, to your game schedule. Any kind of in-season lifting that your coach has you doing. I don't know how many high school programs are doing this. I started doing it as a senior, and I think it really helped my physical development as a player. Obviously, everything's going to be sport specific, but as much as you can, like, think of yourself as a college athlete. Start training with that mindset. Not all high school kids are going to be doing that. Only 7% of high school athletes in the US go on to play a college sport. So if you're coming into your high school season with that mindset, you're not only going to prepare yourself for the next level, but you're probably going to play way better while you're in high school, and it accelerate your recruiting process. I would say also during the season, take advantage of your rest days. So train hard when you have stuff, but on your rest days, don't feel the need to kill your body, right? Like, there is a reason to have rest days built in. I think, yeah, you got to give your body time to recover, especially if you're working hard, and playing a lot.
All right, then the last one would be things to do out of season.
Yeah, out of season, I always try to tell kids, cross train. Cross training is great. I played a ton of basketball growing up, and by the time my college career was done, my knees were pretty beat. I was lucky to never have a serious injury, but just I think repeated impact. And if I had taken time to get in the pool, right, do some swimming, find ways to get cardio. Running is fine, but I was already doing enough running as it was. So I think, yeah, try to get in the gym, lift weights, especially I'll keep it in the basketball context because that's what I play. That's what I'm most familiar with. During the season, you're going to lose muscle mass naturally because you're getting so much cardio and losing so many calories that it's really hard to maintain that same weight. So I think to go into the season as prepared as possible, yeah, get that cardio from another source from the cross training, and then build up some muscle mass, really strengthen your body to go into the season. And that's the best way to reduce, the likelihood for injury and allow yourself to just complete the season. Cause that's a win, right? If you can, I had some ankle sprains my freshman year, but the last 3 seasons, again, got really lucky, no injuries. And I mean, I think a lot of that was preparation and treating my body as well as I could, with what I knew at the time, which unfortunately wasn't a ton.
You mentioned earlier about the step of getting into contact with coaches, letting them know maybe why you're interested in their school. I'm curious to know maybe what are some good ways and bad ways for student athletes to get in contact with coaches, or maybe how many they should be contacting at once. Here's one thing I see in my Twitter DMs: "Hey coach, check out my film." I'm not a basketball coach. I played middle school rec league basketball, and then I never coached. So I'm getting film sometimes. I don't really have a team yet, but I might be putting one together. What are maybe some better ways for students to go about that?
Well, Matt, I like to think they see your potential.
Yeah, maybe.
As a coach. Career transition upcoming. Yeah, I would say the mass DM is not very effective. Coaches get so many emails and so many DMs, like as across the board, right? The best D3s, the worst D3s. Like, everyone is getting bombarded. And I think the things you can do to make yourself stand out is like I referenced earlier, do your work ahead of time, know something about the school, spell the coach's name right, spell the school's name right. Like try to have all the information you need in there. That's test scores, that's your bio, so height, weight, class year, GPA. Don't make the coach have to reach out to clarify something or get more information. The goal should be to have everything in there, demonstrate your interest, and then the coach is going to reach out because they want to, not because they have to follow up with something. Yeah, and then in terms of the number, I always try to tell kids start with maybe around 20 schools. Um, a lot of it is a numbers game. Like you might reach out to 20 and not get a response from 10, right off the bat. So that cuts your numbers in half. Other people will reach out and say, thanks for your interest. You're not quite at our level. We got to see you early this summer or whatever. Like that happened to me with a number of schools. Like I remember the Williams coach. I reached out to him because he had been a school that had been suggested to me, and he was like, "Yeah, we saw you play. You're getting there, but you're not quite at our level." And I was like, "Okay, that helps, right? Mark them off my list. I can evaluate other options." So, yeah, I think once you send those first initial batch of emails, keep track, and then maybe 2-3 weeks later, if you haven't heard from the school, just say, "Hey, coach, following up. Just finished this camp, did pretty well, starting to get some interest. I have 7 or so offers, or these coaches are talking to me," right? Give them a sense of where your process is. And I think, try to follow up without being, I always say like recruiting is the art of following up without being too annoying.
Yeah.
Like that's the balance you're trying to strike. Like let them know you're there, but don't be pestering because again, they're getting so many emails.
I'm sure.
So naturally a school, might take a recruit off their list.
Yep.
Right. But a recruit might also take a school off of their list. So like, what are the right or wrong things to do for a recruit when they decide, this place isn't for me, or, I've taken that list down to, 5 and these 5 are no longer going to be part of my process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a hard one because to have that conversation as a 17 or 18-year-old, like it is challenging. You're getting on the phone with an adult and someone who's devoted a lot of time to recruiting you, and it can be hard to deliver that information. I mean, again, if you want to do it on the phone, that's one way to do it. You could text. I think I'm in favor, and I try to encourage recruits to, once definitely reach out and have that conversation in a respectful way. Thank them for their time, thank them for their, like, if they came to see you play in person, thank them for like making the effort to get out to where you are, because it's a privilege to be recruited. And also you never know where these coaches are going to go. The coaching world is not massive, and a D3 coach one day is a D1 coach the next day, and or a D3 at one is a D3 at another. Very, like, even just in the short time that I think you two and I've been doing D3 Datacast and I've been doing D3Direct, like, there are countless people who have swapped schools, who have gone from being an assistant to a head at another school. And you never know what'll happen, right? Like maybe an assistant that recruited you goes to get a head coaching job at another place, and you didn't love the school that you landed at. That happens, right? Or maybe the coach left and all of a sudden the program's not heading the same direction you wanted. If you burn that bridge, you don't have the option to leave and maybe pursue another opportunity. But if that assistant coach is still someone, former assistant coach is still someone you have a good relationship with, then you can reach out and say, "Hey, my situation's changed. I'd still love to play for you if that's an option." Not saying that transferring is necessarily the right way to approach, an issue on campus, but yeah, I think it's just best to try to deal with it up front, be honest, allow them to move on, just so, if a coach isn't actually recruiting you, you can move on if they don't want to recruit you anymore.
You mentioned, the possibility of transferring. The school didn't end up how you thought it would be. lots of different things. When you're going through the process of selecting a school in the first place, you deal with athletes. What's your advice for how do you weigh like the role you might have on the team or the level of play or even your like D3 versus D2 versus D1 level versus the school part of it, the academics, the programs you like, how comfortable you feel in the school environment? How should a student athlete weigh those two things? I wasn't an athlete when I was making my school choice, so I was more just on the school fit and academic fit. So I'm curious to know how an athlete might or should approach that.
Yeah, I think it's critical that kids look at the school for the merits of the school. Um, Athletics are a bonus. You know, nothing on that front is guaranteed in terms of your body, in terms of the coaching situation. So much can change over the course of those 4 years. And I think, yeah, it's just extremely important that kids like where they are. Because especially when sports, even if you are playing, if they don't go well, all of a sudden you're shooting poorly, having a social environment, having classes, a major that you're excited about, on campus events, clubs, that type of thing, being in an area that you like if you hate cold weather and you've picked a school in northern Maine and, all of a sudden your basketball career starts going downhill, you're not going to be very happy, and probably going to be wanting to leave. So always try to encourage kids to think about the entire experience holistically. And I'll just share a personal story about why this is so important, because I went to Swarthmore and was really fired up about the school, the academics and everything. And I'm glad I was, because the first week of school, I was playing in the basketball open gym. I'd never really had an ankle injury before. And I go up for a layup and I land on my teammate's foot, high ankle sprain. I'm out for 4 weeks and I'm having to walk around campus on crutches. And, it's Philly, it's the summer, it's August, and it's so hot. And I'm showing up in my classes. I'm like sweating. I'm tired. I can't even play basketball. And, I was really lucky to have not only upperclassmen who took me under their wing and, talked to me and made sure I was okay, but also great friends who, there was one day we were going to go to the soccer game and it was pretty far from where my dorm was. So they put me in a shopping cart they found, and they rolled me over to the game so that we could all go together. And yeah, just having that type of support network and being in a place that you want to be is so important when unfortunate stuff like an injury that you can't really plan does happen.
Now, Karl, I wonder if there's any recruiting advice that has changed even just since, D3 Direct began, or if, as you're interacting with prospective student athletes or parents, if there's any old or outdated things that you're hearing that you often have to correct or deal with as you're trying to give advice.
Yeah. I mean, I would say a lot of it is perception about the level. Tons of myths that, just on how athletic, how capable D3 athletes are, what the experience is like, and I think thankfully there's a lot more video out there. There's a lot more, live streams. There's accounts like yours and mine, and, other friends of the program like Bob Quillman and, Ryan Whitnable, and that are, Riley Zayas, who are trying to elevate that level, with more eyeballs, right? Bring the great things that are happening at the D3 level to more people, which, when I was in high school, that wasn't really the case. There was no way for me to get online and watch a live stream. And if I could find one, it was going to be so slow and, borderline unwatchable by today's standards. So I think from that standpoint, there's a lot more awareness. I still think, it's funny being 4 years into this and still having people be like, but yeah, why would I consider D3? There are no athletic scholarships. If I had $1 for every time someone had tweeted that at me, then, I'd be very independently wealthy. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff still holds, right? Recruiting isn't that complicated. You follow up, use email. If anything, if you want to stand out, you can go even more old school and you can write a handwritten note, right? No one is doing that. nowadays with everything being so digital. Dial the clock back a little bit, and I guarantee you will make the coach notice you at a minimum. And but yeah, I think stick to the basics. Don't need to do anything too crazy. There are so many services out there that'll make you a highlight video, or I don't know, blast your profile out to coaches. But at the end of the day, it takes concerted effort, and just you can use these simple tools to get yourself recruited.
So one of the big things across college athletics, you hear it a lot in basketball and football in particular, is the transfer portal. I don't know if you get too much into like college players looking at other opportunities or whatnot. I just wanted to get your opinion on if you think this is going to be something that's here to stay. Obviously, we have the COVID situation that afforded athletes who are in school a fifth year so they could have full seasons when years got canceled. So that's kind of causing a logjam. I guess maybe two questions here. Do you see that as impacting recruiting, kind of the transfer portal, how many athletes are kind of maybe still in the system? And do you think that's going to be a lasting part of college athletics even after the COVID years has kind of washed out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my sense is the volume will definitely decrease once the COVID waivers are no longer. I do think the transfer portal in and of itself is a good thing for college athletics. Like I do remember the days where, coaches would deny a transfer request or like withhold a transcript. And there are a lot of ways to force a kid to stay to school. The NCAA, making kids sit out a full year just to change schools, and sometimes it was for a family related issue, or a lot of things that I think have shifted the power back to the athlete, which is always a good thing in my opinion. With that said, and we were just talking about kind of like the 4 year, like how to assess a school going in. I always try to tell kids, like, try to find your home for 4 years, because if you do, the relationships are going to be so much stronger. Your connection to that place is going to be so much deeper than it will be if you do what some people we see do, is just go to a different school every year for 4 years, chasing your sport, chasing some athletic only dream. Yeah, I don't want to, hard not to pass judgment, but like, again, I think the overall experience will be so much deeper if you can try to find that place that you like for everything, not just your sport at the start. It just decreases the need for the transfer portal. But overall, the transfer portal, I think, will be a good thing for athletes moving forward.
Yeah, great advice, and just like a slice of the great advice and resources that if people find D3Direct on the socials, that they can connect at a deeper level, and tons of resources in terms of gaining visibility and navigating the entire process from admissions to recruiting. But Karl, here as we look to start to wrap up here, I'm wondering if you would indulge us in a little fact or fiction segment.
Let's do it.
Are you game for that?
Game.
Okay. All right. These are going to be tough questions. Okay. Let's start out with the big one here. Fact or fiction? It's D1 or bust, baby.
Fiction.
I thought that was
Absolute
fact.
fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, absolute fiction. I think anyone who tells you that probably didn't play college basketball, or probably didn't play a college sport. So.
All right. Here we go. Number 2. An athletic scholarship offer at another level always means a lower cost than going D3, where, of course, there are no athletic scholarships.
That's fiction again. Yeah. I think encourage kids to look at the effective rate of tuition, which is going to be sticker price minus any merit money, any federal, any state grants, or any third-party scholarships. So you can get a lower cost, even if it's not labeled athletic scholarship. So always try to do your research before you rule out an opportunity.
All right. D3 athletes can have a big-time athletic experience.
I think that's facts. Yeah. Anyone who went to the NCAA men's Final Four this year saw what that crowd was like. and that's a school from Angola, Indiana, right? Like not a big time town. No disrespect, Trine University. Um, not one that's thought of as like a massive college town, but it shows how passionate the fans are in these places where D3 schools are. Marietta College is another one that I've had the chance to go to since starting this, and seeing the fans turn out for their program it's awesome. And again, I think you get that level of community support in a tight knit town. So yeah, it's very, very possible.
All right, last one here. You have to play at a higher level to have any chance at a pro career.
Yeah, fiction here for sure. I just got back from a trip to Europe. I went to London and watched my friend's younger brother play for this team called the London Lions, and was checking out the roster beforehand for the Newcastle Eagles, and there was a D3 basketball player on the other side, one of the Depeche twins from Bates College. So, I think it goes to show. We try to promote it on our site. We use the hashtag D3to Pro on Twitter, but there are just countless D3 athletes who make a way for themselves in the pro ranks, and a couple of D3 athletes who are going to the Olympics in Paris this summer. Like, I think if that's your goal long term, don't rule out Division III opportunities just because it's not D1 and you think you won't be able to go pro.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I saw you on Twitter earlier today. The same day we're recording here, talking about former D3 athletes who may be finding their way to the Olympics. A lot of the U.S. trials are going on right now, and so that's a little bit to be determined who's actually going to be there, maybe. But coming up, and there will be some sort of D3 representation. And just another plug, hey, maybe recruiting and the admissions process, like, you have nothing to do with that. You don't have a kid, you're not in that process. But yeah, the D3 to pro stuff is really cool. A lot of a wide variety of interesting topics that D3 Direct covers. A lot of great conversations with students that any fan of the Division III level will find interesting. So great work, Karl. Keep up the good work. We're glad to count you among our inner circle of D3 friends, and we look forward to catching you on the road here sometime soon again.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on. I think it'll probably be November, right?
Yeah, hope so. See you in Grand Rapids, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Basketball mecca, Van Noord Arena.
All right, let's do it. Let's go.
That's right. As expected, it was a great conversation with Karl. Great to hear more about his work with D3 Direct. Really excited about everything going on there under the D3 Direct banner, and hope everyone tuned in and is going to give Karl a follow there wherever he is. D3 Direct is all over the place. Definitely give him a follow, support him. And Matt, we need to thank our supporters. We have a great team of people who've decided to partner with us and support us in what we're doing through Patreon. You can head to patreon.com/D3Datacast for more information. We'd love for you to join us there.
The support's great, Zach. Like you said, please support D3 Direct. Follow their stuff. They do tremendous work. Thanks for the support that everyone has given our show. We appreciate it. We have fun making these off-season episodes. We'll have fun in the fall making in-season episodes. But for now, we're going to say once again, good job, team.
Good job, team.